Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Escape channel. Get ready, because there's a lot happening in the chess world. The Brazilian Absolute Championship is going on. The channel is doing live coverage every day at 8 post-Meridian Brasilia time. Just join the live stream to get informed about everything that's happening right now in the chess world. We had two matches drawing a lot of attention. Magnus Carlsen against Matthias Bluebaum inside the Taito Tuzla. This is making waves around the world and more. In this video, I'll also analyze the just-released game between Anand and Gukesh. So, notice that in one video we have three world champions. Anand, Gukesh, and also Magnus. You'll be fully informed, and right after the analyses, I'll also bring what happened in Faustino's tournament. Did Faustino achieve the Grandmaster norm or not? You'll understand everything, but I warn you, hold on, prepare yourself, and let's get to it, because chess will always be. Magnus Carlsen against Matthias Bluebaum, Untitled Tuesday, 5-0. And Magnus starting with the very rare Larsen attack, including the Larsen attack. That's what Naka likes to play, is Magnus copying the American. And more. Magnus also played against Naka in this tournament, and beat Nakamura, which of course surprised a total of 0 people. Let's see what happens. Magnus attacks with d5 and stays in his natural ketone. After e6, then some knights follow e3 bishop d6, and this is why b3 is called an attack. Raphael chess, I never knew why. You'll see here. Magnus suggests he'll play as white, plays g4 and notes, "It's not a sacrifice, capturing it loses the g7 pawn." The attack is set up against Black's future kingside castling. Bluebaum controlled the g5 square, and it's clear Magnus plays rook to g1 with g5 coming regardless, which is Magnus's idea. Notice that the German Grandmaster, he plays queen to e7, suggesting he'll castle long on the queen side, since only a madman would castle short in a position like this. Now, Magnus sends a message, he plays c4, indicating that if your king ever comes to the queen side, I'm already advancing. The pawn structure over here as well. The attack is always dangerous. Well, c6 has been played. It's a solid structure. From the semi-Slav, Magnus develops his knight, watching to see if Bluebaum dares to castle short. He challenges White's idea by playing e5, indicating he won't castle on either side. And more than that, I'm going to start counterattacking these weak pawns of yours here, the ones you called a good attack. This is a very important moment in the game because there are no options here. Magnus plays g5. Look at the move he has to make. Look, it's the move the position is demanding. And after this exchange here, the pawn on h2 is falling, without a very clear compensation for White. And of course, Bluebaum captured Raphael, but here Magnus is down a pawn and also behind on time exactly. But this is where the extraordinary happens that shocks the world. Magnus brings the knight back, attacking the rook. This move threatens to capture on g7. And of course, Bluebaum defended both threats with a single move. So now the question is, what compensation does Magnus get for all he did? Here comes the most important and scariest moment in this game's opening phase. Because Magnus, he makes an observation. Black has a loose bishop on c8. A loose piece is always a tactical theme. Now find a way to exploit it. And the other point that Magnus sees is that this rook can end up being a loose piece. If he moves the knight from f6 now, how do you combine these two ideas? Moving the knight from f6 and leaving the rook loose with the bishop loose on c8. Look at the brilliance of what Magnus does now, and he plays instantly. Look at the perception. He takes on d5, and now he plays this brilliant bomb, which is the move knight to d5. This deserves 1,000 exclamation marks. It's something completely extraordinary. Notice that he sacrifices a completely full piece. Of course, the German Grandmaster took here. Bluebaum spent practically a minute on the clock, rounding up. He took the knight. Now the rook and bishop are hanging, and Magnus plays queen to c2. This is completely extraordinary how a human being can make a read like this. Notice that Bluebaum didn't defend the rook, but played knight to c6, a top move here. Both are calculating deeply. Fino, Raphael chess. They work together. Why didn't Bluebaum defend the rook? Check out the move I'd make. The issue is queen to c8, forcing you to cover with your queen, and it's falling on b7. With the other rook under threat, Magnus has already recovered the piece and moved the rook to save it. You need to develop the knight, but then you lose a piece. The knight on d5 also falls. So Bluebaum calculated this variation. This is something completely bizarre. He played knight to c6, saying he wouldn't let the bishop, pawn, and knight fall, so he gave up the exchange but stood tall. Next, Magnus captured. He takes this rook. Now look at the problem that the German Grandmaster is going to create. He plays queen to f6, counterattacking the knight on f3, and Magnus commented, "A loose piece is a tactical theme, and which one is loose? The knight?" On d5, what did Magnus play? Another brilliant move. He took on g7, sacrificing the knight from f3. Why does Magnus see here that he gets the piece back? After this capture, of course Bluebaum took it. And now comes the move, bishop to g2, and there it is. Look, there, it attacks the queen, and again, the same theme. Loose piece tactical theme. Notice there's a deeper calculation here. Why? If you play the move queen to f6, can Magnus recover the piece by defending the queen on g7? With the rook, nothing works for black. Bluebaum played queen to f5, and Magnus regained the piece. Everything so far is brilliant, genius, and scary. Yet again, the German Grandmaster presents another problem. He plays the move knight to b4, and now it's Magnus who has the loose piece. Look, he's attacking the bishop and threatening a fork. There are two threats. Normally, a move with two threats is very strong, but here Magnus still has resources. He moves rook to g5, attacking the queen, so it goes to d7 for defense. Then, Magnus plays queen to g8. It's incredible. Notice that when the knight reached b4, which seemed to be white's biggest problem, it actually becomes a problem for black. What will you do if you move the king here? f7 is under attack, so Bluebaum moved bishop to f8 now. Magnus, it's the last move. He takes on e5, and here Bluebaum has nothing left to do, so he resigned from this game. You must be screaming. I would too. Raphael Chess, calm down. Why doesn't Bluebaum just move the king? Because if you move the king, the bishop falls with check. And when the king moves away, notice there, the knight, which was black's trump card, also falls. Magnus keeps being relentless, and the pressure of the match is in the air. Neruga once again brilliant, playing like a machine. Two brilliant moves in the same game, the knight on e5 and also queen to g7. Now it doesn't end here, because after all that, notice the results. Magnus was the great champion of the Taito Tusa. The Norwegian keeps dominating on his own. Raphael too, stop inventing stories about him. What happened between Anand and Gukesh? The question remains. Are today's world champions better than those from the past? Let's see Gukesh against Anand. Anand dropped the e4 bomb on him. Wow. There, he's going to face a Sicilian Khan variation from Gukesh, but it's a super solid Sicilian, so Gukesh doesn't want any tactical fireworks against Anand. See that Anand is playing the structure. Marachi saying, I control the strong center. Gukesh puts some pressure on that pawn. The defense comes. And the first threat from Gukesh, he threatens to take the pawn from e4 pinning. On c3, queen d3, Anand plays controlling everything, and now queen c7 developing. After bishop e2, a positional move, Anand prepares to castle short. Gukes puts up a threat with a move that looks like just development, but it's not. He sets up knight e5 to attack the queen. So, after it moves, you lose c4. That's why Anand exchanged on c6 first. And now he gives him a little nudge. With this bishop, notice that everything is logical in this opening phase. Bishop d6 is played by Gukesh, threatening to take on h2, and of course, Anand defended. Preparing for the simple castling, bringing it to this very positional chess of the super grandmaster Anand, castling was played, and at this moment comes the move rook to d8, of course. Gukesh threatens a tactical blow, also gaining a tempo in development. The position is balanced and technical. Anand plays queen to e3, leaving these themes, followed by bishop to e5. Notice this move may allow ideas like f4, but if the bishop retreats, there's e5. Which you can't play because of f4. You lost the queen. Raphael Chess, you don't need to state the obvious. It's important for me to explain this because this tactical theme might come up again soon. Look at how Anand continued here. He moved his rook to d1 to control that square and watch f4. Gukesh accepted the rook exchange, then played bishop to d7 to develop and prepare rook to d8. Anand responded with knight to e2, and that creates a threat. Raphael, what about actually playing the move f4? And when the bishop returns, you get forked. Just notice that, Gukesh. He will notice a tactical theme like this. They're very strong players, so he defends the bishop from this tactic, so that you don't gain the tempo with f4 and now comes c5. This is a key moment in the game as Anand defines the queen's side. Look, he attacks the bishop on d6, and after bishop to e7, he plays b4, saying that he has more space in this position. That is usually a small advantage. Notice that Gukesh centralizes the queen, putting some pressure on that rook after the move knight to c3 here, Gukesh. He notes that Anand's actions aren't good since he plays move a5, and he exposes a problem that arises here along this file. So much so that at this moment, Anand gives up the a file to Gukesh. This is important now. Pure nonsense. Gukesh will try to prove it's good by trading on b4, and that's it. The rook may infiltrate later, but it's unclear how right now. There's still the idea of f4 here. Gukesh is now starting to reorganize his position with queen to c7. Here, Anand establishes that he has more space. He plays e5. Notice that this move, of course, gives up a very important square, which is the d5 square. But Gukesh's bishops can't get into the game, while Anand can indeed bring his bishops, aiming at that kingside flank. The natural move is to exchange the knight on d5, as Gukesh did, attacking the queen and knight, while Anand centralized, saying, if you want to exchange on c3, go ahead, but you'll lose space. Gukesh replied, I won't exchange and will try to reopen the position. I want to stress again that this has always been logical. Anand won't let it go easily. He plays f4 because if Anand's idea is to leave Gukesh without space, he keeps following this strategic principle. Gukesh played bishop e8. If he tries to activate and Anand refused, see Anand's move, bishop g4. Raphael is very clear. He touches the e6 pawn, but he also provokes the move that Gukesh played, which is f5. Very good, because now he defends on e6, but what happens? On the other hand, after Anand defends the bishop, you still have the bishops locked in. Take a look. So Gukesh still has no space. He gives his king some space, improves his position slightly, but waits to see Anand's move, and Anand moves the bishop. To e2, this might suggest b5 and g5 eventually. Look at how Gukesh played, activating counterplay on the king's side. Now, this doesn't come for free. Notice that Gukesh keeps expanding and making his king more vulnerable. So, in the long run, this could even become a problem. Anand, at this moment, exchanges on d5. Rook a1, Anand is saying, let's fight for this open file, and again, it's not for free. Your king is more exposed. In some endgames, Gukesh plays queen c8, claiming the file. Anand moves the bishop to e3, improving the king's bishop on g7, which was stuck. Here, Anand also waits, staying put. If Gukesh takes a risk, maybe a little more, Gukesh doesn't take the risk. Queen b8. I'll stay here, Anand, and queen c3 I'll also stay. Though I might try pushing a pawn on the queen's side. Guk said, dare with queen d8, and now Anand. He takes, and after the recapture, he plays bishop d4, improving a bit more. His bishop still keeps the threat of pushing a pawn at the right moment. And here Gukesh says, calm down, that's dangerous. b5 and c6, and Gukesh defended. So he gave in, he succumbed to the strategic threats that Anand was creating. Now, again, he gave up the file, so Gukesh, besides having a vulnerable king, gave the file to Anand, but Raphael has no way to exploit this file. Look at what Anand played. Rook to a7 still doesn't seem like a problem because here Gukesh simply defended on b7. How will you make progress? Besides that, Anand shows you plays it sharp, bishop to a6. He's making progress, so now he's threatening to take the pawn on b7. Notice that Gukesh isn't confident in White's plan. He just defends the pawn, and now, what's the problem? You might actually have trouble playing as white. With the rook trapped here on the a7 square, see how Anand keeps making sense? He plays b5. Raphael chess? Incredible indeed. If the bishop leaves now, you lose the b7 pawn. So it seems that Anand is finding a way with this rook here on a7 to make things work. But Gukesh said, no, that's nonsense. He plays queen to b8. I said Anand's rook is trapped. But Anand finds a brilliant move at this key moment. Raphael, there's nothing there, but he found bishop takes b7. Notice this remarkable, subtle line from both a strategic and tactical perspective. If you take that rook, your rook on c8 is lost in an exchange and your position collapses. If you take here, I'll take the other side. That's trouble, right? The position of the black king is actually dangerous, very vulnerable. So here Gukesh said, I defend, and you lost a piece in this position. Everyone who was following this, I was following this live right there through chess.com. It looks like Anand is completely lost because now, if you move the bishop, you lose. The rook is actually Gukat's key point. And Anand, he took on c6 and said, you can take the rook. Again, that's not for free. Gukesh took it, but here Anand is down a piece, but two passed pawns and the pair of bishops that can support the advance of those pawns. With under a minute left, Anand plays b6 and the pawn moves. Gukesh commented, now it's my turn because I'm the one active on the 7th rank. Bishop to d7 threatens e6 and sets up c6. Gukesh responds with a desperate g4. He's trying, of course, a counterplay. Anand keeps advancing, he's unfazed. There are two pawns, there are two squares to promotion. And now Gukesh. He points out his counterplay. He's looking at h3, and the idea that Gukesh is presenting here is that the rook comes to a3. Look at that. Oh, it attacks the queen. The rook is defended by the bishop and threatens h3 in a completely destructive way. How does Anand deal with this? Anand said, I'm going to promote, and what you're doing is all nonsense. Rook to a3 is played, and it appears Anand must defend. But not Anand. Here, he plays a simple move that works, which is the promotion of the c-pawn, and what Anand is talking about is the passed pawns. They are my compensation. And there is the proof of all that. Gukesh still tried the move queen h4. Now a question, Raphael, why? Why didn't Gukesh take the queen on c3? He'd be down a piece if I exchanged on h8. That line works. He took here and Anand would have one more piece. Still with the pawn promoting there on the b file, end of game. So, Gukesh tried the move queen h4 to keep the ideas here on the h3 square. Now comes the final move. The brilliant bishop takes on e6, keeping the queen on c3, and Gukesh calculated this position and resigned the game. A destruction, an unbelievable destruction by Anand against Gukesh. This game is just incredible. Raphael, why did Gukesh resign? If he can take on c3, well, if you do, I can play queen to g8 as the engine suggests, but the simplest move is just to take on c3. There's an endgame where Anand would still have an extra piece with the pawn promoting on the b file. Game over. Anand the destroyer. Rita in the air. The overwhelming pressure. Anand playing like a terrifying machine. Past world champions are very dangerous. Here's Gukesh's mistake. Rook to c8 seemed to have nothing to do with rook to a7, but Anand found all the subtle lines. Now, alongside these two games, I brought some very important news. Look at the results on the screen. Faustino Ouro reaches 5.5 points in the closed tournament he was playing in Argentina. And with this score, Faustino earns his second Grandmaster norm. Check out the article that was published on TIAS as well. With Faustino, Ouro, age 12, is close to becoming the youngest Grandmaster ever. Faustino needs just one more norm for the lifelong title. If you like the analysis of the news, comment below what you think about it. Don't forget to give a big like and see you next time in the next videos.